Working 18-hour days, I slipped and I fell. Winter's up and hit me, I had to change well. There's no way to sustain it, you'll crash and burn. Will not be able to work and no way to earn. Change well, and then you can leave. Change well, and your kids you can feed. Turn your life around for the final bell. It's now or never, you have to change well. It's now or never, you must change well. Hello and welcome to another week of the Change Well podcast. Now today, when you looked at the title in the show notes, you might have said, your podcast is called Change Well. So why are you calling this episode Be Good Not Great? It is human nature to always reach for the superlative. Don't change well, change better, change best. So why is my podcast today called Be Good Not Great? Well, let me tell you, it all started with a dream. You know the kind of dream that I'm talking about? A dream so vivid and poignant that it seems more than real. It's a dream that wakes you up at 4 a.m. with a smile and thoughts rushing so fast that you can barely keep up as you type on your cell phone in the bathroom with the door shut so as not to disturb your wife. A dream of important messages heaven sent to shape your life to pass on to others. And such a dream I had about a year ago. And I want to pass it on to you. In this dream, I was again in my grandpa's house in Trenton, New Jersey. You may have noticed my accent. It is from Jersey, even though I live in Texas now. And there was my grandpa rocking on the porch again. He hugged me as I climbed those stairs that I had so many times before as a child. And then he took me by the hand. As we walked together and talked together, in each room of his house, the memories of shared times came flooding back, and there was an underlying message tying all those memories together. You see, my grandpop was a good man. I say a good man, not a great man, for a reason. The best men and women are good men and women, not great men and women. They dole out love instead of striving for power or money. They love their country and their God. They care more about friends and less about prestige. They take time for fun, the Phillies, and to sing old Irish songs. They look like Fred McMurray on My Three Sons and remind you of Jimmy Stewart on It's a Wonderful Life. And that was my grandpop. And there are 4 lessons I learned from that dream, his life, in my grandpop's home and heart. The first one was on the porch. Take time for family and friends. Grandpop loved to rock on the porch and look out on Melrose Avenue where he lived. 2 memories came back to me as I sat again on that porch. I remembered how he would spend hours on the porch during the evenings and weekends talking to and visiting with his neighbors down the street. Some 50 years later, I can remember their names, faces, and believe it or not, even their homes. During that dream, I visited with them again. Mrs. Kerr, widower, gave us tea and cookies in her home as she talked about her garden. Mrs. Heipel, who lived on the end house on Melrose, spoke about her daughter who had recently moved. And the Torontos telling stories of my mother when she was young. I was happy about the friendship again. And a little sad since my porch faces the backyard. And I seldom visit with my neighbors, or quite frankly, even remember their names. The other thing I remember is how gentle and good my grandpop was. He was no wimp. He had boxed when he was younger, but he knew how to calm his grandkids when they were cranky and tired. I again saw him rocking my brother David, who also has passed, and he sang, Tor, lore, lore, in a voice not as resonant as Bing's, but close to perfect due to its love. As I saw this image again in my mind's eye, I thought back that although I spend quality time with my wife and kids, I was not as calm or soothing as that gentleman who rocked my brother and myself asleep. The next room was the living room, and a lesson I learned there was love others unconditionally and for eternity. So we came in from the porch and into the living room with its furniture entrenched in the 50s. We sat on the couch, as we did so many times before, watching the Phillies. We both loved the Phillies, especially Mike Schmidt. We called him Schmitty, as a lot of people did. In walked my uncle, who had gone missing for several months on another binge, as he had done many times before. He was the ultimate prodigal son. He asked to return home, and Grandpa, with tears in his eyes, took him back. And I thought of when I turned my back on others in my need because I was too busy, and I vowed to do better. The dream again changed to a different moment. This one happened outside my uncle's house, but in the dream it was in the living room for some reason. My family was visiting, and my grandpa walked in with a big bag of donuts as he did on most Sundays, but this time it was different. Several weeks after my grandmom's passing, Grandpa had returned to the donut tradition for the first time without Grandmom. And I again saw a tear from my grandpa's eye when my brother asked where Grandma was. Now, I was really upset at my brother. Maybe I shouldn't have been. He was a little brother. But I thought how my grandpa, who was still a young man at that time, at 50, when my grandma passed, he never dated seriously or married again. He would visit his wife's grave several times a week, keeping the love of her in his heart for the rest of his life. And I imagined them again holding hands throughout eternity, and I vowed to love my wife and my children like my grandpa. The next room was the phone room, and it reminded me, be frugal with yourself, lavish with others. I wanted to stay with both my grandparents again, but my dream switched to the phone room. I wasn't sure if the room was a formal dining room or a second living room, but I remembered it as the phone room due to the rotary phone sitting at the end of a long hutch. Another thing that rested on the long hutch was hundreds and hundreds of coupons. Having lived in the Depression, my grandpa and his brothers were frugal in saving money. And I again saw my grandpa and my great uncle, Don, discussing the latest coupon they found for Acme. My grandpa would drive to 5 or 6 stores to use the coupons to save maybe $1. Besides being frugal on groceries, he did not spend much on himself. He seldom traveled or bought expensive clothes or items, but reveled in simple pleasures like the occasional Phillies game. He was frugal with himself, but lavish with others. As my dream progressed, I remember when he bought my brothers and I a complete Lionel train set on Christmas, and how happy he was when our eyes lighted up. Then I thought back on the many times I splurged on the latest iPhone or Uber Eats instead of focusing on the ones around me. And I seldom use coupons, even though they're digital now and can easily be obtained on my cell phone. And then I vowed to spend less on myself and more on others. Next room, kitchen. Be thankful for the simple pleasures and family. The dream again moved into the kitchen, and I saw the big wooden yellow kitchen table where we often sat. Sitting at the table, I looked at the little stand where my grandpa kept one of his prized possessions, a hot dog zapper. I don't even know if they make these things anymore, but man, my grandpa sure loved it. He would invite us to sit down and put each of the 6 hot dogs on 2 prongs at either end of the hot dog. He would then turn on the machine, and these things would be zapped by electricity, and in a minute or two, voila! You had a hot dog even though it was split by the zapping. He would laugh when the hot dogs would be cooked and zapped and split. But it was a wonderful thing as we sat around the table and had our hot dog. And as we ate, more of our extended family in this dream gathered around, and I realized the time had shifted to my favorite time of the year back when I was a kid, St. Patrick's Day. Quite frankly, my confirmation name was Patrick for memory of these St. Patrick's Days. And I again saw all my great uncles, all of them cops, all of them of Irish descent. My Uncle John and his family, and my Uncle Gary and my family. Each of the men had a Schlitz beer or two. And I told you that Henry's are frugal, so they drank Schlitz beer. And as we went through that night, we sang Irish songs. Mrs. Murphy's Chowder, Come Meet a Donovan, The Same Old Shillelagh, and of course, we all ended When Irish Eyes Are Smiling. And I thought, we often take for granted the simple pleasure of singing with family and friends. We forget the expensive things we bought after a few years. You know, the last TV, the few watches you have, maybe fancy watches. But I'll tell you one thing. I can sing every one of those songs verbatim to this day. And I can see that hot dog zapper in my mind's eye. And just before I left that part of the dream, one more simple, glorious pleasure occurred. And this was probably the best part of the dream. My dad was not Irish. My dad was a backsliding Baptist from Texas. But he wanted to join in with the family. And I again could hear him sing the old Rugged Cross, his favorite song and the one we played at his funeral. And as I wept, I vowed to spend more time with my family and the simple pleasure of life. As I woke, one thought ran through my mind. Be good, not great. Strive for friendship, not fame. Make memories, not money, so you can live on through eternity. In closing, here's a poem that I came up as part of this dream. Be good, not great, for the time is late, and we have but a day to show love's way. Seek kindness, not power, make love a tower, your heart that leaven to seek out heaven. Take time, don't wait, for eternity is our fate, if we do what he asks and complete his task. Seek friendship, not fame, as your temptations you tame. For the time is late. Be good, not great. So change well. Be good. Be kind. Stay humble. Work hard. And until next time, change well.